Good evening, everybody. We're back at it with the wastewater exam audio flashcards. And today, or tonight at this moment, I'm going to be recording the alphabet, and I'm starting with the R's. I think I'm going to do R and S in this session. And go from there. But we're almost getting to Z, and gonna have probably a couple more shows, and then we'll have all the terminology done for this exam prep. So very good stuff. So we'll start with the R's. Rack. An evenly spaced parallel metal bars or rods located in the influent channel to remove rags, rocks, and cans from wastewater. And there's usually two racks that they refer to when it comes to wastewater treatment. It's a bar rack, and well, it's not two racks. It's actually it's a bar screen, which that's different. Those are tiny spaces in between those that will remove or for debris to go through. But then you have a bar rack, and the bar rack is for, I believe, it's spaced like 2 inches, at least 2 inches apart from each the metal bars. So a bar rack is usually a bigger rack. They're usually manually cleaned, and they are sometimes they're used whenever the bar screen is in maintenance, or it needs fixed, or it's down. Then they'll open up the bar rack and have everything being captured by the bar rack. Next is radial to impeller, perpendicular to the impeller shaft. Material being pumped flows at a right angle to the impeller. Raw wastewater, plant influent or wastewater before any treatment. So that's what a raw wastewater, that's the wastewater that's coming into the plant and going into the different processes is raw wastewater. Reagent, a pure chemical substance that is used to make new products or is used in chemical tests to measure, detect, or examine other substances. So different tests have reagents to them. So when you're doing a chlorine test, you have a free chlorine reagent, or you have a total chlorine reagent, or different other types of reagents. Recalcination. Recalcination is a lime recovery process in which the calcium carbonate in sludge is converted to lime by heating it at 1,800 Fahrenheit or 1,800 Fahrenheit or 980 degrees Celsius. So recalcination. Recarbonation is a process in which carbon dioxide is bubbled into the water being treated to lower the pH. Receiver, a device that indicates the result of a measurement, usually using either a fixed scale and movable indicator such as a pressure gauge or a moving chart with a movable pin like those used on a circular flow reading chart, also called an indicator. Receiving water, a stream, river, lake, ocean, or other surface or groundwaters into which treated or untreated wastewater is discharged. A receiving water. So that is your rivers, lakes, streams, oceans, anything that is pretty much like a body of water, where or other is saying that the water is treated or untreated wastewater is discharged, and that's important to know when you're discharging to a receiving stream. You need to have an NPDES permit in order to discharge. So that's something else to note. Recharge rate. That is a rate at which water is added beneath the ground surface to replenish or recharge groundwater. Recirculation. The return of part of the effluent from a treatment process to the incoming flow. Recirculation. Redox reaction. A two-part reaction between two ions involving a transfer of electrons from one ion to the other. Oxidation is the loss of electrons by one ion, and reduction is the acceptance of electrons by the other ion. Reduction refers to the lowering of the oxidation state or oxidation number of the ion accepting electrons. In a redox reduction, the ion that gives up the electrons that is oxidized is called the reductant because it is caused a reduction in the oxidation state or number of the ion that accepts the transferred electrons. The ion that receives the electrons that is reduced is called the oxidant because it causes oxidation of the other ion. Oxidation and reduction always occur simultaneously. Reducing agent. Any substance such as a base metal, or that's an iron, or the sulfide ion S2- that will readily donate or give up electrons. The opposite is an oxidizing agent. Reduction. Reduction is the addition of hydrogen, the removal of oxygen, or the addition of electrons to an element or compound. Under anaerobic conditions, that means no dissolved oxygen being present, sulfur compounds are reduced to odor-producing hydrogen sulfide and other compounds. In the treatment of metal finishing wastewaters, hexavalent chromium is reduced to the trivalent form. The opposite is oxidation. Reflux. Flowback. A sample is heated, evaporates, cools, condenses, and flows back to the flask. Refractory materials. That is materials difficult to remove entirely from wastewater, such as nutrients, color, taste, and odor producing substances, and some toxic materials. Reliquefaction. The return of a gas to the liquid state. For example, a condensation of chlorine gas to return to its liquid form by cooling. Representative sample. A sample portion of material, water, or waste stream that is nearly identical in content and consistency as possible to that in the larger body being sampled. So, a representative sample. Residual chlorine. The concentration of chlorine present in water after the chlorine demand has been satisfied. The concentration is expressed in terms of the total chlorine residual, which includes both the free and combined or chemically bound chlorine residuals, also called chlorine residual. Respiration. The process in which an organism takes in oxygen for its life processes and gives off carbon dioxide. So that would be when you have algae in a lagoon or a pond or surface water. Algae respirates at night and gives off carbon dioxide, which lowers the pH. That's why in the early hours of the morning, the pH is very low at that time, because the algae respired all night and gave off carbon dioxide. And then in the day, it's more photosynthesis because the sun is out, which that means the pH will be higher. Responsibility. Answering to those above in a chain of command to explain how and why you have used your authority. Retention time. The length of time water, sludge, or solids are retained or held in a clarifier or sedimentation tank. You can compare it to detention time. Riprap. Broken stones, boulder, or other materials placed compactly or irregularly on levees or dikes for the protection of earth's surfaces against the erosion action of waves. Rising sludge. Rising sludge occurs in the secondary clarifiers of activated sludge plants when the sludge settles to the bottom of the clarifier, is compacted, and then starts to rise to the surface, usually as a result of denitrification or anaerobic biological activity that produces carbon dioxide and or methane. And when it's rising sludge, like it said, is denitrification. The gas bubbles, nitrogen gas bubbles in the sludge, causes the sludge to rise up in the clarifiers, which means there's a lot of denitrification. Thing to note on that is, especially in your wastewater process, when you have rising sludge, your sludge age could be a factor in that, because if you keep sludge in the system too long, it can cause it to denitrify and cause that rising sludge to rise up and float over the weirs and probably have you to violate your permit because of it. But that's something to note. So rising sludge. Rotometer is a device used to measure the flow rate of gases and liquids. The gas or liquid being measured flows vertically up a tapered, calibrated tube. Inside the tube is a small ball or a bullet-shaped float. It may rotate, that rises or falls depending on the flow rate. The flow rate may be read on a scale behind or on the tube by looking at the middle of the ball or at the widest part of the top of the float. And that's what a rotometer is. It's usually, a rotometer is used in the chlorine applications. So when chlorine is administered to in a water system, I'm talking about drinking water, because that's primarily where my expertise is, but I do have a wastewater license. But anyway, chlorine applications have a rotometer, and when you go to read how many pounds you are administering in chlorine, you read a rotometer, and as the definition said, you read the rotometer from the middle of the ball, and that shows you how much pounds you're administering or given into a system of chlorine. But that's what a rotometer is. So next is a rotary pump, and that's a type of displacement pump consisting essentially of elements rotating in a closed-fitting pump case. The rotation of these elements alternately draws in and discharges the water being pumped. Such pumps act with neither suction nor discharge valves. operate at almost any speed and do not depend on the centrifugal forces to lift the water. Next, rotating biological contactor, or an RBC, is a secondary biological treatment process for domestic and biodegradable industrial wastes. Biological contactors have a rotating shaft surrounded by a plastic disc called the media. The shaft and media are called the drum. A biological slime grows on the media when conditions are suitable, and the microorganisms that make up the slime or the biomass stabilize the waste products by using the organic material for growth and reproduction. And when you note that a rotating biological contactor is like a big drum, and the wastewater flows to it, and the drum rotates around and around. It's types of like RPMs, certain types of RPMs that it flows and goes around and around, and have the wastewater partially submerged. So 40% of a rotating biological contactor is submerged in wastewater, and the other part is not. So at any given time, at least 40% of the drum will be submerged in the wastewater and have contact with the incoming wastewater. Rotifers. These are microscopic animals characterized by short hairs on their front ends. And rotifers are, when you see rotifers in your system, in your activated sludge system, rotifers are indicator of old sludge. So that means the sludge age has been very old, and so a lot of sludge has been kept into the system for a very, very long period of time. And rotifers are an indicator of that. So, yeah. So we have that with rotifers. Now, we're going to jump to the S's. SAR, or SAR, it is a sodium adsorption ratio. This ratio expresses the relative activity of sodium ions in the exchange reactions with soil. The ratio defined as follows. SAR or SAR equals Na over half times Ca plus Mg half. So I should be better at knowing these chemical properties, but that's the math problem to it. So I guess I need to study up more on the chemical properties, the abbreviations for them. But SCADA system, that's the next one. Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition System. A computer-monitored alarm response control and data acquisition system used to monitor and adjust treatment processes and facilities. So most wastewater and water treatment plants, they have SCADA, and that is our pretty much, like it says, is a computer system for us to turn on pumps and look at different types of processes throughout the plant to make sure everything is running, and ensuring that these systems are working properly. And that's what SCADA is for. Not all SCADAs are created equal, but so some that's better to have it probably than some to not have it at all. So, but definitely SCADA system, that's what that is. SCFM is a standard cubic feet per minute. Cubic feet of air per minute at standard conditions of temperature, pressure, and humidity. at 0 degrees Celsius and 50% relative humidity. That's what the standard cubic feet per minute is. SVI, or your sludge volume index, is a calculation that indicates the tendency of activated sludge solids or aerated solids to thicken or to become concentrated during the sedimentation thickening process. The SVI is calculated in the following manner. 1. You allow a mixed liquor sample from the aeration basin to settle for 30 minutes. So that's your settleometer test. Then the second thing you do is you determine the suspended solids concentration for a sample of the same mixed liquor. And so you'll do that. And then the third thing is you calculate the SVI by dividing the measured or the observed wet volume of the settled sludge by the dry weight concentration of the mixed liquor suspended solids in grams per liter. So the math problem to this is a sludge volume index is equal to the settled sludge volume, the sample volume in milligrams or milliliters per liter, times 1,000 milligrams, and then you'll divide that by the suspended solids concentration in milligrams per liter, and you divide that by grams. So that's how you get your sludge volume index. Sacrificial anode, an easily corroded material deliberately installed in a pipe or tank to the extent of such an installation is to give up or sacrifice this anode to corrosion while the water supplies facilities remain relatively corrosion free. This is definitely as a water operator on the water side that I encounter is that in our ground storage tanks, we have sacrificial anodes in them and different types of things when we do cathodic protection and everything. Is very important to know that you'll have these in these types of tanks and towers and all these types of things, so, or in a pipe or wherever, so to keep it from corroding. Sand trap is a device that can be placed in the outlet of a manhole to cause a settling pond to develop in the manhole invert, thus trapping sand, rocks, and similar debris heavier than water. Also may be installed in outlets from the car wash areas. It's also called a grit trap. Next, a sanitary sewer is a pipe or conduit sewer intended to carry wastewater or waterborne waste from homes, businesses, and industries to the treatment works. Stormwater runoff or unpolluted water should be collected and transported in a separate system of pipes or conduits, that's storm sewers, to natural water courses. So to give a quick note on that, to give a quick picture, is that sanitary sewers are houses, industries, and businesses. Then the stormwater would be like the runoff and stormwater collected and for all of that. But in the older systems, if it's an older city, some older cities have combined sewers where it's both of them are connected and cause things to be very, very difficult at the treatment plant to keep up with the hydraulic loading and all of that, because it's a lot of water coming through rain events. But nowadays they want to have them separated. If it's not an older city, it's sanitary sewers and stormwater runoff and storm drains. Excuse me. Next is saprophytes. Saprophytes are organisms living on dead or decaying organic matter. They help natural decomposition of organic matter in water or wastewater. Screen. A device used to retain or remove suspended or floating objects in wastewater. The screen has openings that are generally uniform in size. It retains or removes objects larger than the openings. A screen consists of bars, rods, wires, gratings, wire mesh, or perforated plates. Sealing water. Water used to prevent wastewater or dirt from reaching moving parts. Sealing water is at a higher pressure than the wastewater it is keeping out of a mechanical device. A Secchi disc is a flat white disc lowered into the water by a rope until it is just barely visible. At this point, the depth of the disc from the water surface is the recorded Secchi disc transparency. Secondary treatment. A wastewater treatment process used to convert dissolved or suspended materials into a form more readily separated from the water being treated. Usually the process follows primary treatment by sedimentation. The process commonly is a type of biological treatment followed by secondary clarifiers that allows the solids to settle out from the water being treated. So a secondary process or secondary treatment is, the activated sludge process or trickling filters or fixed film systems is a type of secondary treatment and in a wastewater system. Sedimentation basin is a tank or basin in which water or wastewater is held for a period of time during which the heavier solids settle to the bottom and the lighter materials float to the surface. It's also called a settling tank or a clarifier. Seed sludge. In wastewater treatment, seed and seed culture or seed sludge refer to a mass of sludge that contains populations of microorganisms. When a seed sludge is mixed with wastewater or sludge being treated, the process of biological decomposition takes place more rapidly. Seed sludge. Seizing or seize up. Seizing occurs when an engine overheats and a part expands to the point where the engine will not run, also called freezing. Septic. A condition produced by anaerobic bacteria. If severe, the sludge produces hydrogen sulfide, turns black, gives off foul odors, contains little or no dissolved oxygen, and the wastewater has a high oxygen demand. Septic. So, for instance, when your plant is having, you have DO, dissolved oxygen being pumped into the plant, or aeration, different, aeration. So if one of your blowers, let's say that your blower goes down, and you're not feeding air into the system, the dissolved oxygen, then over time, if you don't get that corrected in a quick manner, your plant can go septic and give off anaerobic conditions and can give off that anaerobic bacteria and the foul odors and the hydrogen sulfide. You don't want that to happen because your plant can die off and the bugs will go septic. So you don't want that to happen. The next term is septicity. Septicity. The condition in which organic matter decomposes to form foul-smelling products associated with the absence of free oxygen. If severe, the wastewater produces hydrogen sulfide, turns black, gives off foul odors, and contains little to no dissolved oxygen, and the wastewater has a high oxygen demand. So septic and septicity is pretty similar definitions. So there's like back to back, but yeah, it's just what I was just saying. You know, if your plant dies off, it's gonna be susceptible to septicity. Say that like 3 times fast. But yeah, that's what that is. Next word, series operation. Wastewater being treated flows through one treatment unit and then flows through another similar treatment unit. It also can be compared to a parallel operation. Set point. The position at which the control or controller is set. This is the same as the desired value of the process variable. For example, a thermostat is set to maintain a desired temperature. So a set point can be just like what it says is like when you have a thermostat, you set it at a desired temperature. The set point will trigger when that temperature is either above that or below that, whatever the set point is. So, or you can have a set point on SCADA to where you have a value to where a pump can turn on or turn off depending on the set point. Sewage. The used household water and water carry solids that flow into sewers to a wastewater treatment plant. The preferred term is wastewater. So sewage and wastewater are interchangeable, but that's the definition of sewage. Sewer gas. 2 definitions for this. The first is gas in the collection lines or sewers that results from the decomposition of organic matter in wastewater. When testing for gases found in sewers, test for oxygen deficiency, oxygen enrichment, and also for explosive and toxic gases. And then the second is any gas present in wastewater collection system, even though it is from such sources as gas mains, gasoline, and cleaning fluid. So, yeah, that's very, very, very important to have your confined spaces tested for sewer gas, because a lot of those gases are in confined spaces that are oxygen deficient or oxygen enriched areas. Shear pin. A straight pin that will fail or break when a certain load or stress is exceeded. The purpose of the pin is to protect equipment from damage due to the excessive loads or stresses. Shock load. And it has in parentheses activated sludge. So a shock load is the arrival at a plant of a waste that is toxic to organisms in sufficient quantity or strength to cause operating problems. Possible problems include odors and bulking sludge, which result in a high loss of solids from the secondary clarifiers into the plant effluent, and a biological process upset that may require several days to a week to recover. Organic or hydraulic overloads can cause a shock load. So it says organic or hydraulic overloads can cause a shock load. This, to give you an example of this can be from an industrial dump. So let's say you have a wastewater treatment plant and you have a certain amount of flow that you know comes through every day, and you looking at the organic load of it, the organic content of your wastewater, and you know that you're running a certain type of BOD that's coming in. Usually it's like 100 to 250 to maybe 300, milligrams per liter coming in, if I'm not mistaken, if that's the numbers. But then you see you have a higher BOD of like 8 to 900 or maybe even 10,000 BOD, milligrams per liter, you know that you'll have an industrial dump or a shock load coming into the system that has shocked the system and upset the system, and it can kill off your bugs and give a lot of filamentous bacteria and other types of issues within the treatment process because of the shock load has shocked the system. So that's what that describes. And then shock load for trickling filters is the arrival at a plant of a waste that is toxic to organisms in sufficient quantity or strength to cause operating problems. Possible problems include odors and sloughing off of the growth of slime or slime of the trickling filter media. Organic or hydraulic overloads can also cause a shock load. So it's in the same sense, except trickling filters are not a suspended growth system. It is a fixed film system. So when the waste or the growth of the slime that's on a trickling filter, it will have odors, and it will just slough off or break off and go down into the trickling filter. And then you'll know that you had a shock load in the trickling filter. Short circuiting, a condition that occurs in tanks or basins when some of the flowing water entering a tank or basin flows along a nearly direct pathway from the inlet to the outlet. This is usually undesirable since it may result in shorter contact reaction or settling times in comparison with the theoretical or presumed detention times. So short circuiting happens in basins or tanks, and it can mess up a lot of things. And so you want proper detention times in tanks and proper settling times and everything when you got wastewater coming through to a basin or whatever. But when you have it short circuited, then that can cause hydraulic overloading and other types of things to where the solids can carry over and the processes that they shouldn't be, or into the let's say the effluent basin, to where your final effluent, if you got solids going out, then your permit is going to get violated and you're going to be in big trouble. But yeah, you got to make sure you have the proper baffling and other types of things to help out with that when dealing with short circuiting. I'm sorry, I got cats and dogs here, and they just, for some reason, they just don't know how to be quiet. So sorry about that. Shredding is a mechanical treatment process that cuts large pieces of waste into smaller pieces so that they will not plug pipes or damage equipment. Shredding and comminution usually mean the same thing. So when you shred something, if it's going through a comminutor, that means it's getting shredded. And a comminutor is a type of device that shreds larger pieces of organic waste or inorganic waste into smaller pieces, so it can be easier on the downstream processes. So you have that when dealing with shredding. Side stream, wastewater flows that develop from other storage or treatment facilities. This wastewater may or may not need additional treatment. Side stream. Significant figure, the number of accurate numbers in a measurement. If the distance between 2 points is measured to the nearest hundredth and recorded as 238.41 feet, the measurement has 5 significant figures. So that's what a significant figure is. Single stage pump, a pump that has only one impeller. A multi-stage pump has more than one impeller. So single, one, multi-stage pump, more than one impeller. Skatole, an organic compound, C9H9N, that contains nitrogen and has a fecal odor. Skatole. Slake, to mix with water so that a true chemical combination or hydration takes place, such as in the slaking of lime, to slake something. Sloughings, trickling filter slimes that have been washed off the filter media. They are generally quite high in BOD and will lower effluent quality unless removed. Sloughings. Sludge is a settable solid separated from liquids during processing. And it is also the deposits of foreign materials on the bottoms of streams and other bodies of water, or on the bottoms and edges of wastewater collection lines and appurtenances. Next, sludge age, a measure of the length of time a particle of suspended solids have been retained in the activated sludge process. To calculate sludge age, you calculated sludge age in days, suspended solids under aeration in pounds or kilograms, and you divide that by the suspended solids added in pounds per day or kilograms per day, and that will give you your sludge age. SDI is a sludge density index. This calculation is used in a way similar to the sludge volume index to indicate the settleability of a sludge in a secondary clarifier or effluent. The weight in grams of 1 milliliter of sludge after settling for 30 minutes, SDI equals 100 divided by the SVI. And then you also will compare it to the sludge volume index to compare that definition and to give you more of an insight. Sludge digestion, the process of changing organic matter in sludge into a gas or a liquid or a more stable form, solid form. These changes take place as microorganisms feed on sludge in anaerobic or more common or aerobic digesters. So anaerobic digesters and sludge digestion is more common than aerobic. Sludge gasification, a process in which soluble and suspended organic matter are converted into gas by anaerobic decomposition. The resulting gas bubbles can become attached to the settled sludge and causing large clumps of the sludge to rise and float on the waters. This can be grouped in with denitrification, and that's the actual process that's happening. So when the sludge is gasifying, it is the gas bubbles can become attached to the settled sludge, causing those large clumps to rise, and that's what denitrification is. And we already did the definition for sludge volume index, so we're not going to say that one again, but sludge volume index, we said that earlier. A sludge volume ratio is the volume of sludge blanket divided by the daily volume of sludge pumped from the thickener. That's the sludge volume ratio. A slug, Intermittent release or discharge of wastewater or industrial waste, a slug. A slurry, a watery mixture or suspension of insoluble, so it's not dissolved matter. A thin watery mud or a substance resembling it, such as grit, slurry, or a lime slurry. Software program, a computer program and the list of instructions that tell a computer how to perform a given task or task. Some software programs are designed and written to monitor and control treatment processes. Sludge concentration, or solids concentration, not sludge. Solids concentrations is the solids in the aeration tank that carry microorganisms that feed on wastewater. Is expressed as milligrams per liter of mixed liquor volatile suspended solids, or MLVSS, in milligrams per liter. Soluble BOD. Soluble BOD is the BOD of water that has been filtered in the standard suspended solids test. The soluble BOD is a measure of the food for microorganisms that is dissolved in the water being treated. Solute. The substance dissolved in a solution. A solution is made up of the solvent and the solute. Solution. A liquid mixture of dissolved substances. In a solution, it is impossible to see all the separate parts. Specific gravity. There's two things to note about specific gravity. Is the weight of a particle, substance, or chemical solution in relation to the weight of an equal volume of water. Water has a specific gravity of 1,000 at 4 degrees Celsius. Wastewater particles or substances usually have a specific gravity of 0.5 to 2.5. Particulates with specific gravity less than 1.0 float to the surface, and particulates with specific gravity greater than 1.0 sink. Weight of a particular gas in relation to the weight of an equal volume of air at the same temperature and pressure. Air has a specific gravity of 1.0. Chlorine gas has a specific gravity of 2.5.